It's the OG Fact Checker, here to give you a juicy tidbit of history that's verified. This will be my first time providing an update to an OG Fact Checker episode. I never thought that any of the events in history I've covered so far would have new information for me so soon after me covering it. I believe that certain chapters in history aren't closed forever. Persistence wins out over resistance, and the universe manages to right a wrong. In this case, it took the universe over 60 years to right the wrong of the 1961 assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the former Prime Minister of Congo. You might remember Short 22 from episode 25, part 3 on brothers John Foster and Alan Dulles. Here it is, Short 22 from episode 25, part 3, The Tale of Two Hated Brothers. All right, this next part is not for the faint of heart because what the U.S. put into motion was diabolical. So Allen and Devlin focused all their energy into the assassination plot. After Lumumba contacted the Soviets, the U.S. ambassador to the Congo, Claire Timberlake, reached out to the newly elected Congo president, Joseph Kasavubu, and in a private conversation said, "Ya boy Lumumba is bringing too much heat, and the U.S. encourages you to do something about it." This was no problem for Kasavubu because he didn't like Lumumba. So his response was to broadcast over Leopoldville's main radio station that he was removing Lumumba as prime minister and would name a successor. In response, Lumumba convened the cabinet and they voted to dismiss Kasavubu and announced it over the radio. Devlin, impatient, reached out to Colonel Joseph Mobutu, leader of the Congolese army under the president, and offered him a lot of money to start a coup. Mobutu said, "Yeah, I'll give you a coup in a week, and in return, you will recognize my government and me as leader." Mobutu was true to his word. Lumumba and some members of his cabinet were secretly traveling to another region when his convoy was ambushed by Mobutu. They were kidnapped, beaten, and taken to another location where they were paraded in the streets and beaten some more, which was broadcast around the world. Then they were taken to another location and held in a room where more enemies stopped by to beat them. After that, they were loaded onto a plane and beaten again as they were flown to a remote location to be turned over to the Belgian military, dumped near dead on the runway. But this wasn't enough. They took these near dead people to a field where they shot them one by one. They were dumped in a shallow grave, but the Belgians in charge of the execution wanted no trace of their bodies. So they doused them in acid. When they ran out of acid, they chopped up the bodies, set them on fire, then ground the bones until they were dust. 2 of the 4 people responsible for this savagery were Belgian, and they had to get drunk to finish their evil. Alan's stats got better with this one without his brother. He was now 3 and 5. Here's an update on that chapter of history. On March 17th, 2026, numerous news outlets around the world reported that Etienne Davignon, a former Belgian diplomat trainee, was called to the Belgian court to stand trial for his involvement in the 1961 assassination of Lumumba, as well as the 2 members who were with Lumumba when he was kidnapped and executed. It is believed that Davignon, who eventually became a vice president of the European Commission, was complicit in the kidnapping and degrading treatment of Lumumba. Apparently, of the 10 Belgian people identified as responsible for those deaths, Davignon is the last surviving member. Belgium took moral responsibility in 2002 for Lumumba's death and apologized to Lumumba's descendants and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Did the US and the CIA take responsibility, you might ask? Well, no, actually. In 1975, the US Senate claimed that the CIA may have plotted to assassinate Lumumba, but ultimately it was Belgium who had blood on their hands. Sounds a lot like the game Hot Potato. To be fair, you can't really dispute the fact that Belgium was pretty hands-on with this wicked deed, especially when Lumumba's gold tooth was in the possession of the daughter of one of the Belgian officers involved in the desecration of the bodies. The tooth, and I'm not joking, was repatriated to Congo in a full-size coffin for proper burial with a government apology. I'm glad Lumumba's family is on the road to closure. It's a shame it took 65 years to make it happen, but like they say, better late than never. I love history. You came for the truth. Thank you for staying for the story.